Sure. I'm Paul Banas, and I've been a coach for about 4 years. And but prior to that, started a website called GreatDad.com. That was a website for to support dads as parents. I also run and publish Pregnancy Magazine. So I've been working with families and more specifically dads for about 15 years. But as I said, been a coach for about 4 years, and excited to be here to share with some of the things that we've learned over the past couple of years about how to help moms and dads with this difficulty of being in alignment.
Yes. And I'm Sheryl Stoller, and I've been coaching parents for about 15 years for those parents of kids who are more, and which can really create, really put a spotlight and open up all of the hardest parts of each parent in how it is to best deal with these challenges that our kids bring that we never thought were going to happen. So we have been working each individually and together on what it is that does work to help parents get into alignment. And we are very excited that we have the chance to help people do that here today. So I'm so glad you're with us. Thank you. So again, please get involved in the chat as we go along here.
Okay, so why are we here? Because I think we can start with both Sheryl and my experiences as parents, as young parents, and as aging or older parents, and we know how painful parenting is. I mean, without going into tons of anecdotes about my own relationship and marriage, I don't think my wife would disagree that there have been times where it's been really, really rough and really, really great. And during those times when it's really, really rough, we have triggered each other in a million different ways. Stupid things from who left the dishes in the sink to all the way up to decisions on childcare and education and all the rest. And that's what we really want to talk about today. Because if any way we can help parents with kids of any age that are going through this and make this part of life that should be the most fun, the most exciting part of your life more enjoyable, that's what we want to do.
And that's beautiful. And so the thing that brings me here is that we have very intense kids, hence my niche. And there are lots of things along the way that were very, very painful for me. They were sad. And my way of dealing with it is to feel the sadness. And my husband's way was to avoid feeling the pain of the sadness. And so we both felt very alone. And that could have been different. And the things we're going to be teaching you here today are things that you're going to be able to take home and use at home to help you become in alignment, have those tools for not having to feel isolated and alone in the relationship that matters so much just for your own sake and for the well-being of your children. So that's where we are. So why we are here for you, we're wondering which Discord stuff comes up for you. Is it different people, different perspectives, like Men Are From Mars, Mind Chatter? I don't know if you know the book. That's a reference to a book called Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. It's an oldie. And also just the mind chatter, the thoughts, the judgments that come out in our head about each other in the situation that we're dealing with, both in front of our kids, with the kids, and outside on the other scenes. So would love to see in the chat if there are any things that you can share with us. What are some key pain points for you as to why you are here? What brought you here today relative to your alignment, lack of alignment with your parent partner? They're happy to see it in the chat. And sometimes it's hard to open up different upbringing, so we don't align. I'm not able to participate for a few more minutes. Okay, that's helpful to know. How we handle situations differently. One person yelling while the others remaining calm. I mean, that often we kind of go to the opposite extreme of where each is. It's so understandable. So those are some of them. And each one of you who's here, begin to just think about what's true for you. As we move on, I want to say I'm a parent mostly on my own. And that's
That's common.
important. That is common. And the alignment with yourself and your daughter is huge. I'm so happy you shared that, Tracy, because the alignment within is key. So thank you. Willingness to see influence of our own parenting on our behavior. Yes. So glad. It's hard. So what would be different? So imagine take these things and those different habits that trigger or judge lead to worrying kids are copying the habit, and I start nagging and disrupt the harmony. That is so understandable and so prevalent among humans. My guess it's in the animal kingdom too, and various other kingdoms. But imagine for a minute, that's not there. That what would be different for you if that sense of judgment, that triggering did not lead to the boiling over? Imagine how would you feel differently? Like, just take for a moment a situation where this last happened, whatever it is that brought you here today. Envision that. And imagine having the wherewithal to pause and do something different that enables that disjoint, whatever that situation was, to be no more and no less than it needs to be, and to get underneath it so that whatever its foundation is gets taken away and it can just float away, go down the river, a cloud passing in the sky. Imagine what your sense of living would be and how different that would be, and how different it would be for your parent partner, how different that would be for your children. Watching their parents learn how to be with the hard stuff. Imagine. I don't know about you, it makes me sigh. And if you can imprint that in your body, that's something, that's a little added bonus here. That vision that you carry with you and you can access anytime is an added bonus to what we're going to show you as some of the tips and tools. So there are lots of things that make it difficult. And one are some of the beliefs. Say life should be perfect. Like, I shouldn't have to go through these hard times. But that's not what life is.
Another one is that we get images bombarded to us through advertising and entertainment about perfect couples. In fact, when we were searching for the images to use for this slide, we were like struck by all the images where everybody's dancing on the beach, everybody is happy in the sunlight, and that's not the way life is. Life is not perfect, and we have a lot of built-in expectations because we've heard these messages from early on that life should be perfect and everybody next door is having a different life than we have. And that's not the case.
Yeah. And it's not, and the difference, somebody mentioned the cultural differences, the different backgrounds, even if it's from the same culture in general, we have different families of origin that all of this leads to different expectations that makes it very difficult.
Yeah, my wife is Korean American and came here when she was 9, and those differences, as much as we respect each other's cultures, they still boil up into things that are unforeseen and unpredictable. Yeah,
it's understandable. And the tools we're going to be talking about today, Courtney, will help with how to handle discord in front of the kids. And you're right, the things we're teaching will also be with how to reparent ourselves. They will contribute to all of that. Thank you for that.
All right.
Yep. Self-compassion is the first step. Think about all you're up against. Holy heck. It's a lot. I mean, Paul just mentioned a few of the outside influences, and that we are bombarded. It's an echo chamber, 24/7 news that's sensational. It's a lot. And if you get to say, I am up against a lot, what that does is help you know you're connected, you're not alone, and give yourself permission to give yourself a break. Yeah, of course I blew my top. I'm human. Doesn't mean I'm going to try to do it as often as I can. It just means that when I do, I get to give myself a break, and I get to turn to myself. You're the first, forever, and final love of your life. And that's not something we're inculcated to feel, to know. It's very hard to get to that. And I want to let you know that this is yours. This is your sovereign right to love you unconditionally. And that is so very important. One of the things that I want to say is, this is a nice picture, but it's harder to get there. But yet we can. Give yourself a break. Give yourself a break. Let yourself know you love you. And if you're so moved, no, I think we're going back for a second. Aren't we going back for a second, Paul?
Yeah.
Giving yourself a hug. And that is key. That self-compassion. There you go. Your cue, Paul.
Yeah. So I did that. That's easy, right? Fixed. We all just give ourselves a break. We give our partner self a break. We all are happy, and everything is fine.
And I did want to share, one of the ways I do it is say, I see you. So like if I'm in a time crunch, I say, I see you. So Paul's right. It's not really easy. But one thing that you can take with you in terms of the self-compassion strategy, 3 words to yourself, maybe hand on heart, maybe silently, maybe aloud, I see you. And here's a trick. When you're doing it with your spouse in their presence, they don't know whether you're talking to you or them. You're talking to both. And when you do it with your kids, the I see you, they feel it as well. So that's another little trick. Thanks for letting me interject there.
Yeah. So the problem, though, is that this mind chatter that we all experience, I mean, for some people, it's really a cacophony. For some people, it's random thoughts. Some people have so many voices in their head saying negative things about themselves, about their partner, about the situation, that they almost feel schizophrenic. It's that intense. And but it's quite often there. And even if we tell ourselves rationally, give yourself a break, life is hard, be in the moment, all those messages, those little voices, they keep on coming back, and they keep on telling us negative thoughts that sometimes are, brand new. Even if we think we've kind of put one thing in place, another voice comes in and says something else is messed up. And so that's really our big challenge, as I think, as human beings, is to hear, understand those voices and try to put them in order.
Yeah. So help yourself know that what gets in the way is natural. And somebody wrote, in terms of the abnormal parenting, those messages felt abnormal. And so those are part of the voices that we get to notice. Oh, look at that. That's from the past. That's my absence of having a model. That's that whatever it is for you is understandable because of the negativity bias that happens from our evolution, to have to notice the tiniest things that could tell us there is a tiger in the leaves, and that's what the crunch was. So we're picking up all the tigers that are really just leaves being crunched by the wind or a squirrel, and being able to discern what that difference is. And that often our mind goes to what's dangerous. There's also times when our minds just sort of, oh, isn't that fun? So the joyful stuff. So the mind chatter is also what to do. Do we want to reduce all that mind chatter? No, these voices have a message for you. But when there's so much mind chatter, it's really hard to get the accurate message. Very hard. And when that mind chatter is overused in terms of hypervigilance for all of the things that are around you, they are overused, and that gets in the way of our being able to see the reality. It's a squirrel. It's not a tiger.
Right. So how do we usually know when we've gotten rid of that mind chatter? And there are certain ways we recognize in our lives that quite often that mind chatter disappears when we're involved in certain activities. A lot of people go golfing for that reason. They golf, and for 4 or 5 hours on the course, they don't think about all those voices. You can do that whenever there's a crisis. You've ever noticed if there's some real problem, your mind is not getting distracted by all the other problems of the world. It's focused on that crisis. So have a baby. That's a good one. A lot of parents, the voices really slow down in some ways when they first have that baby. You can go skydiving. You can take a COVID test where you're focused on what that result is going to be. Bungee jumping. Try a piano solo in front of 2,000 people. That'll do it too. And the final one is sex, which for a lot of people is a way to get out of mind chatter, get out of their body, focus on one pleasurable activity, and not think of all that noise. That sometimes works better for men than for women, but it is an effective strategy for some. Yeah. But these strategies aren't really practical on an everyday basis. That's the problem. It's hard to, whenever you're having experienced a lot of mind chatter, to jump out of an airplane just to stop the voices.
Right. And then the everyday things are just all over the to-dos, what to do next. And in order to get that done at this time, what do we do? And it's the judgments about all of it is so hard. So let's just take a moment for a second. So we're thinking about all the things that our mind chatter is doing to us right now. In fact, take a moment. Focus on one thing. I'm going to suggest rubbing 2 fingers together, like on your lap. Nobody has to see what you're doing. We don't have to see it. But those fingers, or rub it against your hand, the palm of your hand, looking at the palm. It is fascinating. Like, just take a look at that hand as you feel it, the textures, the light, the different shades of color. And do it on the other hand. Notice that was an involuntary sigh. Don't know what happened for you. Okay, so now hopefully our mind chatter is a little less. And as we move forward, it's like other things that we can do. This is our second strategy. And I'll hand it over to Paul for the next strategy. And they're what we call mini mind vacations.
Yeah. So if there's any time you're experiencing some of these thoughts, is to take what we call a mini mind vacation, which is a little bit like a mini meditation. It stops you from those voices. You focus on one sensation, whether it's touch or as Sheryl was showing, or hearing, or seeing, and you can just focus on something very intently. You can stop this cycle of the mind chatter even for a few minutes, and that can really be a relief and a much needed mini vacation during your day.
So what I'd love to hear in the chat is, what's the loudest voice in your head about yourself or your parent partner that impacts your parenting? What is that loudest voice? I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, that is prevalent. You are not alone, Courtney.
Part of the human condition.
Yeah. Why is he doing that? Any others? I know mine's like, can he see what's going on here?
Right.
That's not judgment. I have a positive mind voice that says, I am a great parent. Yay, Tracy. Yay, 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 yay. Fear, they will grow up wrong, missed opportunities. Man, I know that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. That had a lot to do with my tears as my kids were young. Thank you for sharing these. You're absolutely right. These are what we get to catch. So that leads us, I know I can handle this one only if he can cooperate and not interrupt. Right. If only he would.
Right.
We've got the judge of self here. We got the judge of others, the circumstances, but don't want to parent via fear. Right. So if we don't want to parent via fear and all those voices, preempt them, know they're coming. Intercept those voices. So that is where we're going to go with intercept the next things. Anybody have anything else you want to say about what it is that you do to intercept those voices? Or ones that you know happen the most, the one you can work on next. So like when you leave us here today, is it the one you've already wrote, or is there another voice in your head that you want to say, this is the one I'm going to practice with? I recently learned I have a choice to show up as a source of positivity and positive role model. Yes, you do. And for intercepting those voices, that positive change is possible. So that what he just wrote, know that positive change is possible. The research has borne it out over longitudinal studies. Let me be and let's see how it goes. Lasting change is possible. So you get to catch the things you're telling yourself, and you're already coming up with the hopeful things like, oh yeah, this is what I also get to say back to that voice that I know is going to come up in here, and it's going to scream with a megaphone. You get to say the answers that you've come up with, and you get to say, you know what? Lasting change is possible. Lasting positive change is possible. The research bears it out, and we're not going to go into the research here, but we're just going to do a little bit of bits and pieces of it that Paul will take us through.
Yeah, so we know that through science that you can create new ways of seeing these situations in your brain. You can create new neural pathways. This is research that's now only just 20, 30 years old, based on brain plasticity, and that you can change your reaction to these different stimuli. So as we said, part of this is taking those mini vacations, but also recognizing those voices, and certainly recognizing the most prevalent ones, so that you can hear them distinctly hear them, identify them, and know that you're not going to have the same reaction you always did. There are the things that happen in my household every day that each one of them could trigger me into either usually a silent rage in my case, but that feeling of anger. But it doesn't have to be that way. The fact that my wife left the bowl in the sink is not a reason for me to be angry with her, to think of her as lesser of a person, to be angry at me that I didn't somehow prepare it differently, that sort of wouldn't occur, a million one little things like that. So stopping and hearing that voice for what it is, and knowing that it's a trigger for you, is the first step to then learning time after time to not treat it as the biggest event of the day, when it has absolutely no consequence. And we all know that in our lives, we look back on what happened yesterday, most of the stuff that really set us off, the pedestrian who walked in front of a car, or somebody who grabbed a coffee in the coffee store ahead of us, or whatever, really has not a lot of importance as life goes on. So learning to recognize those things and stop them and change your response is doable. It does take one part insight, as we say. That'd be the 80-20 rule. Here would be the 20% would be insight, and the 80% would be the habit of doing this. knowing when you hear that trigger, changing your behavior and doing that day after day after day. So after a while, you don't even recognize it. You've changed your behavior, but it is coupled with the fact that you are aware that you are changing your behavior for a more positive response.
And that is that repetition, small, frequent learnings about this. That's how we do it. We do it with small, frequent, in other words, small being short, frequent, consistently. And we're not going to be consistent all the time. In addition, 5 times as effective when we have a support system of a community with whom we are doing it. That research blows my mind. I was not the kind of person that was social, that got involved in communities. I didn't like all of the dynamics of different people all at once. But when we're with a group of people who are going for the same outcome or the same journey and the same path, be it our parent partner, or be it our internal alignment, be it a community with whom we have other adults to share this with, beyond with our parent partners, but also other adults, we are 5 times as likely to be effective. Take that in, 5 times as likely. And that has been my journey over the past 5 years, is learning how to be in community and benefit. And I have tremendously benefited from this. So
and we should say that there are so many ways of doing this. This could be as easy as talking to a girlfriend or a guy friend and saying you're interested in doing this and wanting to help. There are many groups of men and women who are supportive in this way. Group coaching is definitely out there for everybody, but it doesn't always come under the guise of group coaching. Sometimes it's just women's groups and men's groups and different groups of people. So those community resources are out there if you can find them and use them to help in this process.
And imagine what's different. Imagine when you have the place to offload your fury at the little things and the big things, and you have both of you doing that. Each of you has a place to offload within a group, within your own resources, and then lovingly with each other. It doesn't have to be the contentiousness with each other. With my husband now, having done what we've been talking about, these 3 habits, we are now able to say, oh, I sense I'm triggered. He doesn't even know I'm here kind of while, and he's just talking to me like I'm a little widget in his little orchestra, whatever, his factory. I'm mixing metaphors. Oh, he's stressed. I do my so the voice in my head is blah. It's like, get me out of here. I want to run. Do my mini meditation, my mini mind vacation. And then I can have the self-compassion and move forward and reset from a place of alignment rather than, oh, I see you're feeling stressed about getting this done. How can I help? Oh my gosh, what a difference. So what would be different for you when both of you are practicing this habitually in a way that you have support where, like, you know what, I haven't been able to get myself to do it. I like, help me, spur me on, give me some energy, someone. And that is when both partners have access to that as a couple, as individuals, as adults, it changes what can happen in your home.
Yeah, I know from my experience in our house, just some of these simple things, learning them in conjunction with my wife. I can't say that all those voices stop or the problems are gone in a miracle, but it does give us somewhat of a common framework to work with, and just a little bit more grace to each other, because we know we're both facing the same type of mind shadow, these same messages, these same triggers during the day. And even if it doesn't mean that she's going to automatically take that dish out of the sink, it means that she's aware that that might trigger me, and all the tension is reduced, even by a little bit is a gift.
Absolutely. And I see other people answering. It's wonderful. So we're wondering what's resonated of the things we've taught as the key strategies: being gentle with yourself, catching the voices in your head, and taking mini mind vacations. What's resonated for you? Whether it's those 3 strategies themselves or some of the details we talked about in addressing them. Catch voices in head. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we should mention the fact that this idea of mind chatter isn't, it isn't universally, people aren't aware of it. Maybe it's entered, kind of the common talk now a little bit more in the last couple of years, but a lot of people never really understood it. And just understanding that it's there is already a big step toward awareness.
Yeah, absolutely. So catch voices in head, take mini vacation, practice self-forgiveness. Absolutely. Absolutely. There's more that we can go into with that as well. So what will get in the way of doing this, however? These are wonderful things, and you know what you're going for. If there's a crisis, it's not the biggest part of the day. Can catch the voices in the head. Beautiful, Shishita. Having taken this little journey with us in this half an hour, from the triggering to the getting settled to the, oh yeah, that's what's going to happen, and I can do something with it. I can say something different. What's going to get in the way of your doing this practice? Because when we plan for it, it's a whole lot easier to plan a detour. What's going to get in the way for you to actually implement what it is that you want to implement, from the catching the voices, the mini vacation, practicing self-forgiveness? What do you imagine is going to be the hardest thing that's going to get in the way for you? If you could share that in the chat, that would be great. There's not time. Need to move on to the next to-do list. That to-do list, context of aligned parenting. I'm a convert to my approaches, but my wife thinks it is woo-woo. And I don't know how to offer this to my wife. Yeah, it is. I have to say that was the situation we were in, and that we can talk about that. Pressure and momentum of fitting quality time with kids and adulting in a short amount of time every night. Yeah. When it's a pressure, it's not quality. It might be time, but it's not quality. Yeah. These absolutely get in the way. And there are ways to address that. Yeah. Anything else? And you might have some that you don't feel like sharing, or they're not coming to you. It's like, but I like being in the state I'm in without having to think about what's getting in the way. So we can move on. That's good. This is, as we round towards the end, you get to think about what is possible when you do anticipate, intercept those voices, take your mini mind vacation, have self-compassion. You'll be able to move forward towards alignment. So happy holidays. Hope you enjoyed this. And you feel like you got something that you can take with you going forward. Paul?
Yeah, so this ends kind of the formal presentation. I hope you feel like you got something out of these three habits, these 3 strategies. They are big in scope, and both big in scope and little in individual action at the same time. But they will help. They will create new ways of looking at things, of these new neural pathways, and the way you are triggered, and the way you react to those triggers if you can practice them. So if anybody would like to stay around, Sheryl and I do have a program that we have that kind of gives more of a framework around this idea that helps you stay on track to learning these habits. And that's what I'll talk about for the next 10 minutes. But we did promise you to get you out of here in 40 minutes. So if you'd like to leave, no hard feelings. So
Thank you for coming.
Yeah. So given that caveat, I'll move on, because we do want to talk about some of the things that could be possible or could be helpful to change these habits. So the challenges, I think you mentioned some of the challenges about in your own families about why this would be hard to do. Here's a few other ones. If you've ever had experience with self-help books, you know that it's kind of like this, similar to webinars. You go to the webinar with the best of intention, you write down the 3 strategies, you say how great that would be, and within an hour or a day or a week, you've completely forgotten those, and you've moved on to the next thing. So we know that this, a webinar is not a panacea. Hopefully it's stimulated you to some insight and some thoughts about how you could, that being in alignment with your partner is possible, but we don't have any real fantasy that it will change your life immediately, because we just know, with the best of intentions and with the greatest of insights and all kinds of different messages that we get, it's hard to make these changes. Some of you may be doing meditation rather than mini meditations. I know a lot of people do start their day with a 30-minute meditation, which is fantastic for stopping that mind chatter, and gives you a much needed break in the morning, starts your day off fresh, clears your head, and it can be really, really effective. There are usually 2 problems with that, though, is that a lot of people have trouble doing that every morning religiously and getting into the practice of that. But the bigger problem is that the 30 minutes kind of wears off kind of an hour or 2 later into the day, because it was a 30-minute intense meditation rather than being spread out. Some of you may have considered couples counseling, which is fantastic. I always think that counseling probably comes at a time when things are really in crisis mode. What Sheryl and I hopefully want to do is plant the idea that you can get ahead of some of the problems that become so strong that you have to go to couples counseling. Ideally, you want to try to work on your relationship and develop it before it gets to the point where you're in that kind of crisis mode for your couple. So what we want to just suggest that there could be a system of practice for couples, for moms and dads together, to get into alignment in more of a structured fashion. So we talked about these 3 habits is really to recognize those voices in your head, stop, and maybe do one of these little mini meditations, and then a simple system for then finding ways to have a more positive response. We didn't really talk about that too much today. We talked about interrupting the voices, realizing that they're there, trying to stop the trigger. But one thing that the program that we have does is help you with a variety of different strategies and techniques, tools, to find a more positive response to any given challenge that you face during the day, whether it's with your partner, with your kids, or in a work situation. And it's a unique approach. It's called positive intelligence. It's a little bit like emotional intelligence, but it's really gearing you toward having this more positive response to everyday challenges. It's backed by neuroscience. We know the brain is plastic. That's a really, really recent discovery, but we know we can rewire the brain. If you've ever seen a therapist, you probably already know about cognitive behavioral psychology, the tools that will make you change your habits. We know that positive psychology, which also is a relatively new discipline, has been around for about 20 years itself, is getting great results in shifting people's way of reacting to different challenges. And then we also know from performance science, everything around the sports field, where there's tremendous money to be made. People are investing money all the time trying to teach people these new tricks to get better performance by changing the way the brain is wired to react to a fourth down situation, 3 points behind type thing, or a golfer on a golf course who needs to hit a great shot under intense pressure. And that those people have learned that there are ways that are proven that do get results, and we can integrate those in how we learn these habits ourselves. So the research that we have for positive intelligence comes from now over 500,000 people across the world doing this program, hundreds of CEOs and executive teams using it for workplace positivity, a bunch of Stanford students, because the man who developed this is a lecturer at Stanford, and then athletes who are using it also very effectively to develop a more positive mindset when they are in the process of a game. And there's a book. This has been written up in lots of media as a really effective way to change to more positive responses. It's a 7-week program that we are proposing, and Sheryl and I are kind of pioneers in developing this program around couples. But it's really 7 weeks of kind of doing what we did in the first 30 minutes, is teaching you new habits and new ways of stopping the voices and translating them to more positive responses. That involves daily exercises through an app. So it has wisdom to be used throughout the day that comes to you on your phone, but also has exercises, these little mini meditations, mini mind vacations that are sprinkled throughout the day, so it doesn't become overpowering. It's not 30 minutes in the morning, it's 2 minutes sprinkled throughout the day, so it makes it really more digestible. Again, the 80-20 rule, 80% is the practice. So that's really an important part, but 20% of it is the insights that you can get when you're talking with other people. So there's a group coaching component to it where you're with other people who are going through the same process at the same time and have a chance to share how that affects you and your family. And that in itself really expands learning, really develops the learning. Accountability, it's not about putting on a tape and taking a bike ride or whatever. It is really active, and there is accountability built in because you are asked to use this app every day. You do the many meditations, you interact with the people in your group, and everybody is kind of tracking along at the same time. But most importantly, and we think this is really effective in developing a framework of conversation with your partner, is that you're doing it at the same time. You're learning these same techniques. You have the same objective of a happier, more peaceful, more positive family, and you are motivated to do it at the same time. And because you're learning these things at the same time, you give each other, just in the 7 weeks, a lot more grace and a lot more forgiveness, because you're talking about the same concepts, and you're more aware together of the things that are triggering you and becoming a problem within your family. So as I said, it's a 7-week program. We do weekly group meetings that are about 30 to 45 minutes, depending on the appetite for people. And importantly, the way that Sheryl and I do it, we do moms and dads separately. We recognize that men and women do think differently about some of these things, and it's sometimes easier for women alone to talk about these situations with other women, men in the same case, and for a certain amount of venting, especially in the early parts of the program, about these triggers. And you might not want to say that in front of your spouse, but you can share it with somebody else who's probably going through very, very similar situations. And that's why we do a group led by Sheryl and a group led by me every week, and keeps those separate, while the moms and dads get a chance to come together with different prompts that we have developed, so that they have a chance to debrief about what they're learning every week. There are also weekly videos that are watched somewhere between Saturday and Sunday or Monday before the meeting. As I said, you get to practice some of these mini meditations on the app. There are also 2 diagnostic tests to help you understand what the voices inside your head are saying to you, and what the positive parts of those voices are, and what the potential negative parts are for. And then finally, there's a positive intelligence book that we give as part of the program. So the logistics, if you are interested in that program, there are details about it on pregnancy-magazine.com/PQ. We are starting 2 groups in early 2023, the week of January 8th and then January 15th. And the cost is $995 per person for the 7-week program for all the things that you saw listed, including, I don't know if I said that there's additionally one hour of saboteur assessment, a one-on-one coaching session for each person. But because we really are so enthusiastic about the program and believe that it really can make so much change, we are going to offer to everybody basically a 2-for-1 program here for moms and dads, for couples, for men and women who are doing this program together. So it would be $995, not for one person, but for 2 people. And for anybody, I can put the registration page in the chat.
I did that.
Thank you. Yeah, so that concludes the program. If there's any questions that you have about either what we talked about in the front half of the program or about the positive intelligence for aligned parents, we'd be happy to do that now.